They have these animals. They're making money off of it. Like, isn't that what exploitation is? Welcome to Rising Anxieties. We've got a bunch of really pretty interesting articles today about what's worrying the industry, what's worrying me, what should be worrying you. It probably is. Let's face it. We're a bunch of worriers. That's why you're listening to this podcast. Don't forget we're a podcast. We're on YouTube. Subscribe, hit like. Please, 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 please. All right. First of all, no more goat snuggles. Local family farmers pull out of events due to backlash. This is from WFMZ in somewhere. I don't know where. If I figure it out, I'll tell you. Oh, it's in Pennsylvania. All right. So there's snuggling with baby goat. It's in Ruscombe Manor, Pennsylvania. Snuggling with baby goats may sound innocent. Doesn't sound that innocent to me. I'll be honest. But a local family farm says it will no longer offer the experience at two regional events due to backlash and criticism from animal rights activists. Nice work, guys. Nice work. Like, snuggling with baby goats, does that really sound like the sort of thing that people should be doing? Like, how old are these goats? Like, why are they not with their mothers? Like, et cetera, et cetera. All right. So the co-owner, Justin Steinmetz, who runs the farm with his wife Laura, this is the Steinmetz family farm. They posted this message on social media saying his business and event organizers received a flood of not so nice messages from animal rights activists and vegan extremists, alleging that baby goat snuggling is animal exploitation. Well, it kind of obviously is. I mean, they have these animals, they're making money off of it. Like, isn't that what exploitation is? And he said they'd rather pull out of the events than ruin them with potential rioters and picketers. Maybe in the furthest reaches of their imagination, there might be picketers. I don't know how big this protest is. Apparently, they got a couple of emails. I don't know. No, a flood. They got a flood. A flood could be too. But rioters, that seems unlikely. All right, about 40 goats. They have 40 baby goats. You can imagine like the kind of farm they're running. They were available for $5 snuggles at the farm show. These people, it's just disgusting. Like they have, it's such an unbelievable disconnect because I guess I think that they're probably sincere. They don't get it. They just think this is nice. I mean, I think probably a lot of people do. And I think it's so disgusting. All right. The problem was that they had too many animals. Gee, I wonder why they had too many animals. And they needed to pay the feed bills. Well, put those babies to work. And he mentioned a link to an article discussing the impact of the vegan extremist mindset. So, of course, that's what I had to look at next. It's on Protect the Harvest, which, are people who really don't like us. That's really their main their main result. The name of this article from Protect the Harvest is "They Will Never Stop: The Vegan Extremist Mindset." Aren't you happy? All right. They get into a bunch of things and I'm just being kind of vague. All right, I'll read you their definition of animal rights extremism. It's kind of a long article, so I don't want to get like bogged down in it, but there's a lot of good stuff in here. Animal rights extremism is the belief that animals have the exact same rights as human beings. That's what I believe. I believe animals should have the right to vote. I think they should have the right to a public education in the same schools, right along with the other kids. Why they always say that, and it's so stupid. And that there is no distinction between the two. No distinction. They discount the fact that animals do not have sapience. What is sapience? Like, is that the same as no, it's not the same. It's thinking, right? Which allows humans to create concepts such as guilt or innocence and right and wrong. Yeah, too many of them are not really doing a good job at that. I have to tell you, the ideology of animal extremism views animal ownership of any kind as exploitation, akin to slavery and therefore abuse. I don't know whether I agree with that. That's pretty close. I mean, I don't think ownership should be the model, obviously, the legal model of our relationship with animals. But I think there are people who quote unquote own animals, at least in a legal sense, who are not being exploitative. There aren't a hell of a lot of them, but there are some. I mean, sanctuaries basically own their animals. Anyway, I'm perseverating. The definition of animal welfare, they're all in favor of animal welfare. They love animal welfare. It's based on the principle of animal ownership. I don't know. Apparently, you can't be nice to an animal unless you own them. And reflects common sense. Oh, common sense. That's always a problem, isn't it? Approach that animals should be treated well and animal cruelty is wrong. Wouldn't that be nice if that actually were people who own animals, all of them, thought was a good idea? All right. They also define speciesism. This is a word used by animal extremists to describe their belief that there is no distinction between animals and humans. None. Zero. Like, like if a chimpanzee walked in the door, I would not be able to know whether that was a chimpanzee or a human. Like there's just no distinction. Um, Understand the mindset of the animal extremist. Your daily consumption of online content consists of fake abuse photos and videos depicting animal abuse scenes. Apparently, anything that shows abuse of an animal is fake by definition. So no animals are being abused, because if you see an animal being abused, that means they're not being abused. That seems to be the theory here. Because, since you, the animal extremist, has no practical experience with animal agriculture or animals in general, this is always your story, like, we know what's going on. You just don't know. You're not a farmer. You believe every image and video clip you see. Imagine living your life with the belief that millions of animals are treated inhumanely every day, even though this is untrue. Well, I'll tell you, living your life like that, which is what I believe, is fucking hell. And I would like it to stop. Imagine living your life with the belief that animals are exactly the same as humans. Well, nobody actually believes that. And that animals interpret the world in the same way as humans, which they do not. I agree. They do not. That doesn't mean it's okay to be mean to them. Then they go through a very long piece about how animal activists are mentally ill. And they cite some old studies. This was a thing, several years ago. And they do give the possible reasons. And vegan and vegetarian diets might make you crazy because there's nutrient deficiencies. That's a likely one. If you have an eating disorder, that's probably the reason you're vegan. So you're already mentally ill. And individuals who are extremely sensitive to or focused on the suffering of animals may become both vegetarian and depressed, anxious as a result. Yeah, no shit. There is no live and let live in the vegan extremist, animal extremist world. What? Isn't a whole thing that we do? Oh, I see. Because we're not tolerant of their eating. They don't care what we eat. Apparently, they do care what we eat. And we shouldn't care what they eat. They forget that living and let living, live and let live could also refer to the animals that they actually don't let live. But no. In the world of vegans and animal extremists, compromise is a highly contested tactic to reach their ultimate goal. This is how they get into it's both groups like HSUS and ASPCA who talk about incrementalism and compromise. And PETA, which is, they're all crazy. They don't believe in compromise. It's all a trick. It's all a trick that we're putting out there. And like, for example, Prop 2, which was the first ballot initiative in California that banned gestation crates, etc. That was a compromise that legislators and apparently all the citizens of California who have been tricked. So they made this compromise with HSUS to agree with it. And then they wanted Prop 12, which made it even stronger. Like, Like, and they just tricked everybody into believing this would be enough, leaving out the part where people also then voted. The majority of people in California voted for both of these things. Like, it makes no, it's so hard to criticize because it makes no sense. It is important to note, they say, that these regulations do not improve animal welfare. I admit they don't improve it a lot. They do improve it somewhat, but not a lot. And only serve the goal of regulating animal agriculture out of business. God, I wish that was true. I really do. All right, anything in here? Educate the public. Do not let your friends and family be useful idiots. That's anybody who agrees with us is a useful idiot. Because they don't really agree with us because they're stupid, because they're an idiot. But it's useful to us that they think they agree with us. These groups are gaining ground. I love reading these things when it shows how scared they are of us. Lawmakers and representatives are valuable, useful idiots to animal extremist groups. Apparently, anyone who doesn't agree with them is an idiot. I guess I think that too. Anybody who doesn't agree with me is an idiot. I do, so I can understand that. Even though there are people who leave veganism and animal extremism to recover. Oh, currently there are not enough. And unfortunately, their voices are muted. So he wants to give them uh, a bigger voice, people who have, ex-vegans. All right, it's a long article. I already went on too long about it, but it was fun. All right. From the New York Post, which is pissed off because it looks like New York City, I'll believe it when I see it, but New York City could actually ban the Central Park horse and carriage industry. They're not pleased. The New York Post is pretty well-known conservative rag. The rush to ban Central Park horse carriages is the true cruelty. This is an actual editorial. And they're talking about, like, they had that city council hearing with the family of the boy who was killed in that carriage horse accident. And they point out New York City sees other deadly accidents all the time without prompting a rush to outright ban cars, construction work, or e-bikes. Well, that makes sense. Like, just ban everything and do all of that first before you get to the horses, which of course is this terribly vital industry. Like, ban cars first, and then we'll talk about the horses. The testimony from those in the industry, the one who'd lose their livelihoods. Oh God, if somebody has a job doing something, we should never get rid of it. Not to mention, in all likelihood, their horses was powerful too, because they value their horses so much. And it points out that they're mostly immigrants or immigrants' children, because Republicans are so fond of immigrants. And, the New York Post, being a very Republican-oriented newspaper, is also, they just love immigrants so much, and immigrants' children. And it points out that their average salary is $65,000 a year. Like, why are we saving this industry? How do they live in New York City on $65,000 a year? This is not a good job. I'm sorry, we're not saving good jobs here. The overwhelming majority of them who work as independent contractors or owner-operators get no employer medical insurance or other perks. Well, either does anybody else who has their own business. It's so weird. As a spokesman from their union noted, the bill's worker development provisions won't lead to jobs that come anywhere near the ones the drivers now have. Well, I admit that it's a pretty unique job, but it pays $65,000 a year in Manhattan. Like, that's got to be doable. The idea that forcefully retired equines will live out peaceful lives at pastoral sanctuaries is pure fantasy. I have to admit that I'm scared. I mean, it's always scary when we get rid of it. Like, what if we got rid of pig farming tomorrow? What would we do with all the pigs? I mean, it's always the threat. Well, if you make us get rid of this ongoing abuse, we'll kill them all. So, yeah, I want sanctuaries. I want them to pay for it too. Well, not the guys making $65,000 a year, admittedly, though. But whoever is running this has been such a contentious issue in New York City for so long that you got to figure somebody's making money somewhere. There's got to be money involved. All right, I'll stop. Let me see. What is this one? 4 things I'm side-eyeing as a rancher these days. This is by Brandy Buzzard on Ag Daily. This is just I'm just gonna go through these quickly. One of the 2 of them are diseases. The New World well, not diseases, parasites. The New World screwworm in Texas, she's worried. It's now in Texas. Like, we followed it all the way up Mexico, and now it's in Texas. Encouragingly, the US Department announced last month the opening of a sterile fly production plant. And, it should be great. We're gonna release 30 million flies in 12 weeks, 50 million flies, and then a lot more in the fall. Then what could go wrong? The Asian longhorn tick, they're now worried about that. This the tick, which can shockingly reproduce without mating. I checked that because I figured she was crazy, but it turned out to actually be true. They can reproduce without mating. That's bad. All right. They're worried about it because, it attacks animals and cattle. And I Googled it. It also attacks humans, which seems like that could be in here as one of the concerns. Apparently, it prefers animals, not just cattle, like lots of animals. But humans are on the list. And in other countries, it's a big problem for humans. It hasn't so far been in this country. So, let's not worry about it. The farm bill, she's worried about, of much concern to those of us in the livestock sector, is a solution to Prop 12, which has been an unnecessary and overreaching thorn in our side for quite some time. Yes, one that was passed by the people of California has been upheld by the United States Supreme Court, and it's still at risk. Don't think this is over. Like, we've made progress. They want it so bad. They just want it so bad. And then weather. She's worried about the weather. She's not really worried about the weather for Kansas, which is where she lives, but she's worried about the Pacific North, which apparently the predictions are okay. I don't know. But she doesn't feel great for her friends in the Northern Plains and Pacific Northwest, where they are already in drought, and a warm winter may not be helpful when it comes to snowpack and moisture levels. An extended drought will not bode well for those wanting to get significant herd rebuilding underway. Well, let's stop herd rebuilding then and start worrying about climate change. No, no, let's just worry about herd rebuilding. All right. They're still worried about the Oregon ballot initiative. This is also from Ag Daily by Amanda Zilukage. Perspective: Oregon ballot initiative could radically change livestock practices. And she starts off with this story, which is she wants to prove how much she loves animals. And one of the hardest moments of my life was sitting in our veterinarian's office as we said goodbye to one of our beloved family dogs. And I totally believe her. These people are able to compartmentalize which animals matter and which animals don't a lot. And I believe that she really, really cared about this dog, and it still makes her really sad to think about it. So what? What does that have to do with anything? It was those memories that came to mind as I read Oregon's initiative petition 28, better known as the Peace Act. Yeah, and how are we going to put this together? That there shouldn't be any exemption. She thinks that actually euthanizing your family dog who is suffering might just be against. This is ridiculous. It's ridiculous. That has nothing to do with what the Peace Act is about. Critics, including farmers, ranchers, veterinarians, hunters, conservationists, and animal agriculture organizations, already, who's lined up against this law, warn that its sweeping language reaches far beyond preventing abuse. It could create legal uncertainty surrounding humane veterinary practices. No, it couldn't. No, it couldn't. While many have ultimately failed, she says they have repeatedly forced producers to defend practices that are already governed by extensive state and federal regulations. Yeah, no, they aren't. That's not true. And these activists want the measure to sound compassionate. It does sound compassionate, and prey on people's love for their pets. But those so-called loopholes in the existing law aren't accidental omissions. As probably this ballot initiative would seek to I don't know whether they call them loopholes. They're exceptions to the prohibition on cruelty in the cruelty law, for agriculture. But no, they aren't they didn't accidentally put in an exemption for agriculture. She wants to put, nobody thinks they did it accidentally. We all know they did it on purpose because they want these industries to be able to thrive. At the same time, we prohibit cruelty against, like, your dog. Those so-called loopholes in the existing law aren't accidental omissions. They recognize that animal agriculture, veterinary medicine, and wildlife management, yeah, I wonder how we're managing them, necessarily involve animals and therefore require legal frameworks distinct from laws intended to punish intentional abuse. So basically what she's saying that the people who support this apparently don't understand that animal agriculture involves animals. So they don't understand that there should be different rules for those animals as opposed to the animals that we want to prevent cruelty to. That's exactly what she's saying. Also, it's not just animal agriculture. Of course, it's hunting and fishing. They're not merely recreational pursuits. They provide the primary source of funding for state wildlife management through license sales and federal excise taxes on hunting, fishing, and shooting. There is absolutely no other way to raise money in this country. There's no possible way to raise money for something that should be done other than to sell licenses to kill animals. That's the only way to raise money. Don't you know that? Farmers care deeply about their animals. Oh, I love this stuff. Not only because their livelihoods depend on healthy livestock. Yeah, right. No, they don't. Ever see chickens going to slaughter? But because caring for animals is central to agriculture itself. No, killing animals is central to agriculture itself. You don't decide to make your living from animals if you don't like them. I don't know why you decide to make it. Usually it seems to be because your parents own a farm and you can inherit it. That seems to be the thing. The Peace Act isn't simply about preventing cruelty. It's a sweeping attempt to redefine the relationship between people and animals in a way that would fundamentally reshape agriculture, conservation, and veterinary medicine. Exactly. That's exactly right. That's exactly right. All right, so Amanda Zalukich, that's probably a bad pronunciation. She blogs under the name of The Farmer's Daughter, USA. Yeah, there you go. Inheriting the farm. That's a big option. All right, I'm running out of time here, but I do have one more article because this is ridiculous. This is from Plant-Based News. EU protein plan targets more plant-based options to feed farm animals. So they have this new plan regarding raising more protein, plants that have protein. The new plan aims to increase domestic production of plant-based proteins throughout Europe to use as feed for farm animals. They have missed the boat here. I mean, not exclusively, but predominantly. So this is the European Commission, which is one of those things, in Europe, like that they have a million different things that have names and I don't know what they are. So they have a protein action plan. They know that protein is important. They know that they want to raise plant-based proteins. And the reason they want to raise them is that they can feed them to livestock. According to the European Commission, the non-binding plan, it's non-binding, mostly non-binding, could help to reduce the bloc's reliance on imported proteins and reinforce the supply chain. However, it does not mention the urgent need to reduce reliance on animal agriculture, which is deeply inefficient and currently requires about 70% of the EU's plant protein. You wouldn't have to import it if you weren't feeding it to animals. This is so stupid. It's really disturbing at this point in what's going on in the United States for Europe to do stupid things because we're kind of relying on you to not be idiots like we are. All right, Eurogroup for Animals is on this, and they do mention there is one binding commitment in the plan, and that's to raise the EU's animal feed self-sufficiency to 35%. That's the only binding commitment. The rest is all voluntary. So the ones that would encourage people to raise protein, plant-based protein to feed to humans. If you want to do, if you don't, it's fine. There's also no commitment to investing in alternative proteins and novel foods. So yeah, get on board here, Europe, especially since Europe is burning. It's so frightening. It's so frightening. All right, that's all I got for you. Thank you for being here. I really appreciate it. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and comment. And don't forget to catch the Hen Report and the Our Hentist interview. This week is going to be an animal law podcast interview. Last week's interview was with Joanne Molinaro, the Korean vegan. It was really good. We loved it. Anyway, see you next time.